So this year, I found myself in a bit of a predicament where I had this itch that I just could not scratch. I was searching for something different. I was searching for a farming simulator that was comfy and cozy and was just something that I could mindlessly play that fit all the feelings that I wanted. The happy, the frustrating only slightly, the wanting to achieve, right? And then that's when I found Slime Rancher. Now don't get me wrong, I get that I am so slow to the Slime Rancher craze, okay? So Slime Rancher, for those of you that don't know, Slime Rancher is a farming simulator that came out as early as 2017, though it was in early access before that. And in this, you play as the character Beatrix LeBeau, who has journeyed from future Earth to a place called the Far Far Range. The Far Far Range being where slimes are basically the dominant species. Slimes are gelatinous creatures that have various traits and have interesting diets. You have the pink slimes that can eat anything, and then you have things like tabby slimes or hunter slimes that only eat meat, such as chickens. You have puddle slimes that only devour water, and fire slimes that only devour ash. Likewise, you have rock slimes that only eat veggies, and other types that only eat fruits, like the honey slimes, right? So this game, I guess, was super popular, and yet, despite how popular it was, I myself never played it. I looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, this game is so cute, I have to have it. It was created by a small studio called Monomi Park, and I saw so many YouTubers playing this, but I don't know, something about it, I was like, I want to play it on my own, so I'm not going to watch it, right? I'm not going to watch any videos on this. I don't want to be spoiled. This is something that I kind of just want to experience on my own. And then better games came out. And I'm not saying better as in like, you know, just this game is bad or anything. I just mean like games that I already knew that I was going to enjoy came out, you know? New MMOs, new platformers, new RPGs, you know, things that I typically tended to play. And so that's kind of like where my story with Slime Rancher seemed to end until this year, actually. So this year, while browsing Steam, I tend to check out the sales during my paydays, just in case there's something that looks interesting that I can get for cheap. You know, it's one of those types of things. And I saw Slime Rancher, and it was on sale. And then it just suddenly triggered a memory in my mind. Like, oh yeah, that was a game I wanted to play so long ago, and then I never got it. And I was like, you know, this seems like it's what I want, because I wanted a farming simulator for so long. I tried the demo of Astroneer, I tried Planet Crafter, I tried all these different things, right? And none of them really fit what I was looking for. They were all too hard, too punishing, right? They seemed to just be so focused on energy and space and all this other stuff, and I don't know, it felt like I wasn't gonna have a fun time. I was gonna be more frustrated at first, until finally I, you know, could get that farm of my dreams or get a good system going, right? And I don't really like being frustrated, and so I was like, you know, all these games are great, and they all have, like, great, you know, starts at least, but I could see where after a while it would just get annoying, and it'd be more frustrating than fun, and I was like, it's really just not for me. Slime Rancher, though, changed all that, in that it's not punishing, right? You can play this game however you want. Sure, yeah, it does have an adventure mode. And, you know, going through the different lands, finding all the different slimes, you know, it is what you make of it. If you just want to make money, you can just make money, right? If you want to do something different, you know, if you want to go and explore and craft gadgets, right? This game has that too. If you want to hunt for achievements, this game has that too, right? There's so much that you can actually do. And it's cute, right? Yes, when you die, quote unquote, you know, in Slime Rancher, you know, you do lose your current inventory and you do lose a day. But it doesn't seem half as punishing as some other games do it. You know, you don't lose a whole day and a half. Your crops don't wither and die because you didn't water them, right? I mean, yeah, they wither, but new crops pop up. You don't have to keep watering your plots. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff in Slime Rancher. You can go out and explore for a couple of days at a time and not have to worry about things going crazy. You know, especially if you set everything up right. And getting a solid farm going isn't actually something that's difficult to do. So, I mean, it really did just fit that category of what I was looking for. And besides, look at these things. They are freaking adorable. Yeah, so they catch the ground on fire, but they're worth it. And can I just say that this game ended up being so much deeper than what I thought it was gonna be? And I mean it when I say that. Like, this game is freaking ridiculous, right? Never in my life did I think that I was going to freaking, like, have to sit there and, like, sob. Because this isn't just a farming simulator. This is a love story, right? This is a tale of people who suffer from wanderlust and a want of something greater than what they've experienced thus far. And I think that is freaking amazing, right? I keep saying right, as if I'm actually talking to somebody. But no, I mean it though. When I first started this game, I was just like, okay, this is something to kill the time, you know. Again, I was like, okay, it's brain dead, haha, hee hee, whatever. And then I almost started playing for the sake of just getting that next bit of lore, that next bit of story. I had to be like, okay, what happened to Hobson? Why is he no longer around? Why did he give us the ranch? Are we related? What happened to Casey? Like, oh my gosh, were these two together? Like, it's really ridiculous how invested in this game I became after a while. Because at first it was just like, ooh, I need that next upgrade, and I need that next, you know, thing so I can upgrade my corral, you know, and ooh, I want that next slime. But then it turned into, no, I have to know what happened next. I have to go to this new area, not because I want a new area to explore per se, but because I want to know what happened to the people, you know? And it's so funny, and yet so silly. And I know I'm still talking kind of like monotonous as if I'm reading off a script, but I'm still sick, so I'm trying to not break out into coughs right now, so please excuse me. But yeah, I think I now suddenly understand the hype around Slime Rancher, because here's the thing, there's no pressure, okay? Games like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley and My Time at Portia, which I've all played by the way, they all have these limits, right? They're all like, oh, you know, do this by a certain time, blah 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 blah, you know, or else, you know, characters are gonna die, or you're not gonna beat the game, or, you know, you're gonna have too harsh a winter, or something like that. And I don't like games like that. I mean, maybe people do play farming simulators to be realistic, but I just can't, right? That's not really how I roll. I don't like time limits, I don't like pressures, I don't like things like that. And so to me, like, Slime Rancher is just the perfect thing. Because if you don't want to do the story, right, then you don't have to. If you just want to raise your slimes with no other worries, you can do that, you know? You don't have to complete anything. You don't have a time limit. There's no seasons, right? There's nothing like that. Now, is the game perfect? No, the game is not perfect, okay? There is so much that frustrates me about this game. One, the science section, right? Which is what I'm doing right now. The science section, I think this is where I saw a lot of people losing interest in the game because of how grindy it is, right? So you buy these blueprints. It's like you buy these blueprints and then you take them over here to the fabricator, and you have to have all these materials in order to make these really cool items. Like teleporters and med stations, all those would be really cool. I want the drones, actually. Like, that's what I really want. But, you know, they're so hard to make. You know, you have to have the right slimes and the right amount of plorts, and then it's not even the plorts that are the problem, it's these other items like the wild honey and the jellystones and all this other crap, right? And you have all this cool stuff that you can actually use if you can make it. And half the time, I just don't have the stuff to make it. Oh, except for the, you know, the the cosmetic stuff. I've got the stuff to make that for some reason, but I just don't have the stuff to make anything else. And the thing is you almost don't want to make the cosmetic stuff, because then all of a sudden, you know, you need the resources for something else. So, it's one of those things where it's cool in theory, but it's frustrating. And, you know, even though the rest of the game is kind of grindy in a way, the science is where it gets really grindy. And it's not even that it's grindy, it's just that it's poorly explained. It's poorly explained on how to use it, and you're basically just told, just go out and do science stuff. And I don't like that. I don't like being told just to go out and do science stuff. It's not how I roll, right? Do I have any elder briar chickens in here? Any old briar chickens? Okay, anyways. And the farm's huge, right? But I will say that the walking, right? All the walking is annoying. That's why the teleportation is so important when it comes to these things, you know? Oh, I got royal jelly. Ooh, and a hexacle? I'll have to be back for that. But yeah, it's really just the science bit and all the walking. Because here's the thing, some slimes exist in these places that are super far out of reach. Like, say, the ancient ruins, or maybe the glass desert. And then you kind of get to this point where, you know, in order to get to the glass desert, you first have to go to the quarry, and then take the special door, which leads to the ancient ruins, and then go through the special door that then leads to, you know, the glass desert, and it can get kind of annoying. You know, and that's why you want to make the teleporters, right? And that gives you an incentive to do the science, but again, the science is just so grindy and annoying. And it makes you not want to do it. Yeah? So that's kind of just where I'm at with the, with Slime Rancher, right? I've already beaten the game, and the story was great. And now I'm just thinking, now what do I do? It's a game that has longevity and replayability if you wanted to. You can play it different every time. You can speedrun it, you can decide just to raise the slimes and not really worry about anything else. You can focus on science, hardcore. You can just go straight through the story and then decide you never want to play it again. Tons of different options. You can choose different slimes to raise. You can challenge yourself with what slimes you want to raise. You can decide that you want to raise only larvos, or you can, you know, make risky decisions and almost create tar slimes, or, you know, let your slimes run free on your ranch. Tons of different options, tons of different things that you can do, all really fun and offering a bunch of replayability. But, of course, there are things that some people don't like, myself included. One, while I love the love story here, I don't necessarily like that I have to play as a predetermined character. I think farming simulators, one of the appeals to them is that you can just play however you want as whoever you want. And you don't really get the freedom to do that in Slime Rancher because you are just Beatrix LeBeau. Now, I mean, that's okay to an extent because the story is really good. And, you know, you always want to see, like, where it goes and how it ends. So it's not terrible to play as this predetermined character. But at the same time, I just feel like I would have loved it even more if I wasn't this predetermined character. I would have loved it even more if I could create my own character and then maybe have some more engagement with NPCs. Because if you thought games like Fallout 76 felt empty before they added NPCs, Slime Rancher feels even more empty. And the reason for that is because there are no NPCs. And I mean that. There are none. As in, like, there's none physically. Because there are some, just not in the way that you'd expect. You can trade with different villagers or ranchers, I guess you could say. And, you know, you have contact with them through trading. But they're just images. They're not actually, like, physically there. And so that could kind of be frustrating. Oh no. Don't you dare. That could have been disastrous. But yeah, so they're not actually physically there, and that in itself can be kind of frustrating, because it'd be nice to be able to visit different ranches for starters. It'd be nice to be able to visit different ranches and hang out in different places and kind of just talk to these other ranchers and learn their stories. I want to know more about Thora. I want to know more about, Bob, even though he doesn't really speak. But it'd be nice to know more about Bob and how he came to be, and, even about the scientists like Victor. And I'm sure Slime Rancher 2 kind of has, like, some sort of incentive here, where they, where they will go into more depth. Even though it's unfinished, I haven't played it. But that's kind of like my hope, is that Slime Rancher 2 kind of builds upon what's great about Slime Rancher and just improves on it. Because here's the thing, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Obviously, the slimes are cute. The slimes are cute, and everybody loves collecting them and trying different combinations for different types of, Largos, and, the thrill of finding a new slime is there. But the problem is that once that novelty wears off, what else do you have? You still have the science, but not a lot of people seem to like the science because of how grindy it is, like I said before. Not a lot of people seem to like the science, not a lot of people seem to like the post-game once you actually beat the story. So what would make that better? Well, interacting with NPCs, like I said, going to different ranches, maybe having a relationship mechanic. Now, that would kind of defeat the point of the love story, and I get that, obviously Beatrix LeBeau has a love interest, quote-unquote, or at least someone that was special to her, in the past. But a lot of the appeal to farming sims is people like to find NPCs that they're, I guess, attracted to, is what you would say. But they find these NPCs that they find attractive or that they really like personally, and then they marry them, and then they have kids. The relationship aspect is huge, especially when it comes to farming sims. So having something like that in Slime Rancher would be amazing, but it makes it really hard when you have a predetermined character. Now, another thing that they could do is, if they're going to keep it to where you're playing as Beatrix LeBeau, you do get mail. And one thing that I always think about is, I think about .hack, infection, mutation, outbreak, and quarantine, where you'll get emails and you can choose responses to those emails, and in turn that'll determine how the person then responds back to you and what sort of conversations that you have. Something like that could easily be implemented in Slime Rancher, where you have this star mail, right? You have the star mail, and you can then interact with the people that you are, that are trying to mail you letters, because the mail seems so one-sided, and that's what kind of makes it sad, is that it feels so one-sided, and you can't actually do anything. So it's definitely one of those things where I wish there was like more of an option. Definitely wish there was more of an option where you could, I guess, interact with the NPCs, even if you can't physically see them, just so that you have, like, at least more to go with. At least you have more to do. And you can build these relationships just in a different way. That, to me, sounds like it'd be worth it. So, I mean, and maybe, like I said, maybe this is me just talking out my bum, but I think that that would be something that's really good, is if you could do something like that. So that even if, like I said, if you're playing a predetermined character, it still doesn't feel so empty, because you're able to do more. But, yeah, like I said, that's really just me. But all in all, I've become addicted to Slime Rancher. I love that there's the upgrade system. I love how much you can do. I love that, you know, you're rewarded for getting money, but you're rewarded even more just for exploring. I love that there is customization, but that it's simplified. You know, it's more about choosing like color schemes rather than having to design a whole house. Because here's the thing, I'm bad at base building, except for in Fallout 76 for some reason. I'm bad at base building, and I love there's already the base there, you know, and you can upgrade it, you know, and then you can add decorations by going into build mode. You can add like little cosmetics, or you can add all these gadgets, and you know, I love that about this. I love that I can basically, I don't have to sit there and till the land and plant the seeds, right? I just shoot a fruit or vegetable into my growing station, and it just kind of takes care of itself, leaving me free to explore. I love that my character doesn't need sleep, so that I'm not punished whenever I decide I don't want to sleep, and I just want to, like, go wandering. I want to look at the cute little slime moon and not do anything else, right? The game's not gonna knock me unconscious for deciding that I just want to go out and do a thing, and I don't want to be bothered, you know? And I love that. I love that it has these scattered messages out here, because it feels like, it kind of reminds me of Borderlands, and I don't know, it feels like it takes the best of farming simulators and gets rid of the worst, right? It gets rid of, like I said, the punishment if you decide that you don't want to go to sleep. It gets rid of, you know, most of the consequences, but still leaves enough of a challenge to be hard, like, but not overly hard. It's not hard to the point of being frustrating, you know? And the puzzles, which I'm really bad at puzzles, I was so thankful that the puzzles are simple. You know, they're not difficult, and I'm not gonna get in trouble, and I'm not gonna be locked out of stuff if, you know, I can't figure them all out, right? It just means that, you know, it gives me time to think about it, and I'm not just stuck in an area and locked from returning because I just somehow can't get out. I'm looking at you, Zelda. You know, so for someone like me, that's a complete freaking idiot most of the time, this doesn't feel terrible. The puzzles don't feel impossible, and they actually feel pretty dang good. The platforming could use some work. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way, but definitely the platforming's not great. The whole jetpack system does not really feel good. It feels realistic, I guess, for what it's supposed to be, but at the same time, I feel like it could have been done a heck of a lot better. And unfortunately, it's just not. I don't know, maybe I'm just being too critical of it, but I don't know, in a way, I feel I'm being pretty fair when I say it's just not that fantastic. And like I said, there's perks to exploring. Sponge shrub. Maybe not that perk, because I'm not going to use that. But no, I'm just kidding. There are perks to exploring and going around and deciding not to focus on your farm, and, you know, and like I said, the consequences aren't, like, super terrible if you make a mistake. It's a pretty forgiving game. It's cute. It's relaxing. It has not really a challenge, but it gives you a reason to kind of challenge yourself, to figure out the puzzles, to take the time to do the things that need to be done in order to unlock the more special things in the game. So yeah, I think it's really great in that way, in that aspect. But like I said, I am super late to the Slime Rancher party, but I'm not mad about it, because I feel like it gives me... Ooh, Violet Slime Lamp. I feel like it just gives me a lot more to appreciate, you know, that there was the people that went through the early access, and I didn't have to bother with any of that, and I'm really getting the final and more perfected version, right, of this, which is good, because sometimes when it comes to games, I don't really have the patience I should probably have. And like, even these that are the more violent slimes, right, they don't take you out in one hit, right? You're not gonna suffer irreparable consequences for going into dangerous zones. And the game gives you ample warning, too. It basically says, hey, you're entering a place that's pretty dangerous, so prepare yourself. And, you know, be ready for what's next. And I can appreciate that, because there's not a lot of games that do that. There's a lot of games that are like, okay, F around and find out, I guess, and Slime Rancher's not really one of them. And like I said, I can appreciate that. I do wish that perhaps there were a bit more threats. I feel like maybe there's not enough threats in the game. But at the same time, like, I'm kind of glad that it's pretty chill, because when I have those days where I just want to be mindless and not do anything, this game lets me do that. It lets me zone out and just kind of wander and take in the beautiful scenery and the cute music and all the adorable slimes, and I don't really have to worry about life so much. And right now, life for everyone, I think, is a little bit stressful. And this game just lets me not stress. And I can appreciate that. And I'm sure anybody could. You know? So, anyways, that's all I got. I just wanted to ramble on about Slime Rancher. So, leave a like on this video if you like it, and if you want to see me ramble about more games that I'm discovering that I'm not going to play on the channel, because really there'd kind of be no point. But yeah, like I said, leave a like. If you've played Slime Rancher, tell me about it. Tell me about your experience. Tell me how you chose to play the game, like how you wanted to play it. I'm just really interested to see everybody's different play styles and how they went about it. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for your continued support on my channel. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Alright, ciao you guys.